All right, you guys are on the record.
Oh my gosh, what a day. What a day.
Good God.
Yeah. Man, this is that week because even though I take, some time off around the holidays, it's only because we pre-tape things like the Killies and special episodes for DTNS, and these are some of the longest days. And then you guys had all your tech issues.
Good.
I am toasty.
I like the way he dumps it in our laps. Like, you guys have your tech issues.
I didn't mean it as that was my problem. I was like, you had your own problems that, we're on top of everything.
To make it short, our boot drive on one of our computers just seemed to kick the bucket.
Yeah,
and
it was about time. What's it been? 5 years, I think.
Well, and this computer
for the media PC, maybe even more.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a 90 gigabyte SSD that finally gave up the ghost. And what's funny is I suddenly felt this huge wave of, because sometimes it gets hung up and you think, let me just hard turn it off and it'll be fine. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
And then it was not fine. And then I know I thought I was like, is that my fault? And so I was at some point we tried one spare SSD and then another and then another.
And they didn't work. And part of me, because you went to go buy the new hard drive, and part of me was like, oh, if he gets those drives and they don't work, that means it's not even the drives that are the problem. And thankfully it does seem that both of the drives were the problem.
It was the drives.
But a real part of me was like, oh, this maybe is a fool's errand just a little bit. So we managed to make, I think we only started like a half hour late.
Yeah, no, it worked out pretty good. We had to call a snow day for the Weird Things podcast.
Right.
But it turns out that was the right decision because it was not easy to work around.
Yeah. So I'm...
Tom, you ever have any tech difficulties?
Good transition. Good segue.
Nope, everything always works perfect for me. Shoot, man, Friday we had Daily Tech News Show just didn't publish.
What
on the CDN? It was up there. It said it was live. Wasn't coming into anybody's podcasts. And it was a technical issue on the CDN side that they had to fix, and they eventually fixed it. So by Saturday morning, it was out there. But
still,
yeah, it's a lovely world when the tech goes bad.
That's rough, man. Yeah, it's you think like I don't know. I am hands deep in podcasting multiple times a week. I am starting a new podcast and I'm setting up all the systems in place to kind of get that going and get my templates right and figure out the right way to do it and stuff. And it makes you realize, oh man, this is still like kind of ramshackle setup stuff, right? I'm using a new podcast plugin that I had never used before, and because I don't want to pay for a service because I already pay for web hosting, and you can do it for free, and if you have the hosting, then you got everything right there. But it's still like it's still kind of a whole deal,
Yeah. Well, and what's funny is like part of me wants to be begrudging about what a whole deal it is, but then a bigger part of me remembers that when I was your age, I say unironically, it wasn't even an option. It was thousands of dollars and already being established. That was the price to get into any kind of getting the word out.
Right.
And I think it's
definitely come a long way in that amount of time.
Yeah.
But I think because I started podcasting in college, and the same system I used then, which was like WordPress plus a plugin, run it through a redirect for stats, and that's it. It's literally
the
same
system
thing
I used for East Meets West is still the system.
I mean, I don't think we've talked about this. I wrapped my mind around this horrific detail. We still record audio on a copy of Cool Edit from 2000.
But it works.
Okay, it does work, but I was wrapping my mind around it.
Yeah.
And I was thinking like, okay.
This software can vote.
Well, quite literally, I was thinking about like when I was a teenager and old people were talking about Woodstock, and I was like, old people are talking about Woodstock. Pfft, that's before I was born. That's how old this software is.
Yeah.
And I was just like, what? Once I realized that, it was horrifying.
But I mean, even something as simple as that, like the digital landscape has been improved a non-zero amount by specifically Audacity. But you go and use Audacity and think, how the hell has no one made this any better in the past 5 years?
Is it?
It's still awful.
Which one of them, if not Audacity, maybe something else. One of them is essentially they bought Cool Edit, changed nothing, re-released it as something else.
No, Audacity is an open source program that a team of devoted programmers have kept alive through their own sheer willpower for longer than it ever should have been possible, and then people just shit over it all the time.
Served, you ungrateful child.
I appreciate I appreciate it, but also you would think a piece of software that pervasive would have better keyboard. Hey, do you know you don't use Audacity? How do you think you zoom in on Audacity?
Mouse wheel scroll.
No, what or keyboard shortcut?
Well, I guess Z.
It is Control-1.
Oh,
what do you think zoom out is?
Well, I would imagine Shift Control-1.
And that's Control-3.
It's unintuitive. This is the best debate I've ever seen on Cord Killers. Your move, Merritt.
Learn to program and change it. Contribute or commit.
Oh, back to you, Bryce.
I get it. It doesn't hurt anybody. You would think it would get better over time.
That someone would volunteer to change this thing that bugs everyone. But the thing is, no one does.
I will say, you look at OBS, which generally is a small person project, but it is open source, and you see things like Streamlabs made their own fork. OBS got rebuilt a few years ago and is now got its own new thing, and you see like how much that has boosted other software developers to make better features and stuff, and it is just really surprising that I don't know of an open source alternative to Audacity or any other audio player because
nobody's talking about Audacity. Every Twitch streamer, every YouTuber is talking about OBS all the time. It has tons of people with money behind it saying, "Hey, do this." Audacity has us. And we're not out there talking about Audacity every day on our Twitch channels, even though we have Twitch channels. So it's just not as much of a momentum behind it. I'm shocked that Audacity hasn't just died. That, through lack of participation, it hasn't just fallen away.
Well, and it won't, because it's free and it works.
Yeah, but they keep developing it. The folks who are developing it haven't given up on it.
Oh, I didn't even I kind of assumed it was kind of...
Have you updated to a recent version lately?
Have you tried turning it off and turning it back on?
Honestly, I haven't, because I kind of thought it would have some sort of auto thing. I will try and update and see what it's like, because for a thing that is free that people on some level tend to rely upon, we use Cool Edit and it is reliable, which is why I am not in any rush to change Cool Edit or
I'm so glad to hear Audacity. That because the looks I get, there are two things. It's Cool Edit and Winamp.
Winamp is a very utility. You look at audio players now and they just don't have the feature set.
Right.
Like iTunes.
Dude, Winamp has come back.
Yeah, Winamp's back.
Really?
You never stopped using it, but it's made a comeback. And you're like, don't call it a comeback. Brian's been using it for years.
Dude, I never stopped because all my plugins were based on it, and I never wanted to update
because you used it in the stage show.
Well, yeah, exactly. I built hardware around it because there was this obscure plugin. This might be a fun bit of trivia. Hey. So it's 2003, 2004. So I used to carry around a giant marathon timer. Remember on The Price is Right back in the 70s?
Like a big red timer.
Well,
segmented timer.
Those click-clack 8 digit displays,
segmented, I believe is
Sure, all using magnetic flippy doodles. It kept breaking because it was luggage and people would throw it around.
Yeah.
And so I was
but
like,
it was analog. Or it was analog mechanisms.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Like think Price is Right, circa 1980s, right?
Okay.
I dug it because it upped the production value of my magic show or whatever. But then around this time, I was like, man, I can't take this on the road with me anymore. I was like, man, I think I'm going to invest in a projector, and then that was a big deal. I ended up spending like $3,000 of 2003 money.
Is that the same projector that you have? Or
no. I broke like 7 projectors on the road since then. Nowadays you can get it for $300, but it was the big deal was, how many lumens could I get? Could people see it at what kind of conditions? Yeah. Because I was performing in community colleges in the middle of the cafeteria, not with proper theatrical lighting or anything. But then it's like, okay, well, here's what I know is if I'm going to do video, so it was already bad enough to have like 20 music cues, even though I would make like a CD, burn my own CD of like all 20 cues. Mm-hmm. So it's like track 1, track 2. So everything was super simple, but it would take an hour and then to train somebody when I say this, do that, and they would still manage to screw it all up. And I was like, man, if I'm going to add video cues to this, forget about it. Nobody's going to get it right. So I was like, I need a way to do all of these things and cue all of these things right on command. And also, I need to have my hands free because they might be in a straitjacket or in the middle of doing magic stuff at the moment that I need all this to happen. Yeah. And so I found on Winamp, somebody had made a plugin that was for a 9-pin serial port that basically was if then like there was one ground or one main plug, and then basically there were 4 others that would go. And so you could assign values to those 4 individual things. Mm-hmm. And so I built a little switch box and I got, play, pause. You could nest it. Button down was fade and stop. And then button up on the same button was advance to next track. So by pressing one button, it would fade and then cue up the next thing. Mm-hmm. And then the other 2 were track forward, track backwards, right? And so it's like, okay, well, that's something I can stomp my foot on. But then I had to figure out, okay, well, how do I do this wirelessly? And so I found at an automotive supply store keyless remote entry systems for cars, and I spliced in leads to keyboard parts, and I attached them to the back of my shoes, and I created a second box. I had to find out what relays were, which is, whenever a 12-volt current goes across this bridge, it does button down, button up.
Sure.
And so I built this thing in 2003. Great. It didn't exist anywhere else. I built one for a friend, decided it was too much trouble, didn't want to actually take it to market, used it for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. Wow. And now it is this ramshackle beast held together entirely with duct tape that barely works. And nowadays there's a whole market for this stuff that is well developed. But I'm still using Winamp because I don't do enough live shows to justify going out and restarting everything.
Well, and also to bring it back to the main point, Winamp lets you mix video and audio.
Correct.
Source items.
Right.
And whips the llamas.
And whips llamas. And specifically also
their asses.
Winamp would, most important to me, when it wasn't playing video, it would just broadcast a blank screen until the next thing got played. So that you didn't have to, I was able to control everything with my feet. Yeah. That's the point.
Well, hey guys, I'm hungry, so I'm going to go eat from now until January.
Right on. Okay. Well, I'm hungry, so I'm going to watch Healthy Addict cook food on the channel right now, live.
That sounds awesome. Yeah. Unless you're listening to this later when she's not live, unless she coincidentally is live.
In which case, you're welcome. Hey guys, happy 2018. Thank you for everything. It's been great.
See you in 2019.
Have a great one.